My first guest here is definitely a creative person, and creatives are definitely the people that I'm most interested in talking to, particularly during these times. This guy is a do-it-yourself creative type. He has homemade his own movies and YouTube series for quite some time. He's best known as the Cinema Snob, and some of his fan favorites include Hooker with a Heart of Gold, the Cinema Snob movie, and Disco. I'm glad to be talking today to Brad Jones. Brad, good to see you.
Good to see you. It's a two interview. We got
good to see you too, Lloyd.
Lloyd came here just in time,
Yeah.
right when it started. I was like, oh, he knows when the camera's on.
The first question I want to ask you is, I'm trying to get a sense of what a typical day is like for you now. What you're doing as far as coping with all of this, balancing your home life with your work life.
Yeah.
What a typical week is like now for somebody who used to be openly very methodical about how each day of the week breaks down.
I'm a workhorse. I'm a work shark. Like, I'm constantly working on something about every day, and that didn't really change because there's a lot of my work that I can do from home. Like, a lot of it I would do from home anyway, like watching movies, writing, things like that I would do from home. Now, before the quarantine happened and everything, the Snob and some other things were shot at the Channel Awesome studio, and I would edit there as well. So what changed is that I'm now editing from home, which I was doing before I moved to Chicago anyway. So it wasn't that drastic to go back to that. For a couple of months, I was filming everything here. There's a lot of Snob episodes that were shot in my closet. And now the studio has reopened, and we go there and we go there like one at a time and things like that to do our shows. So the big difference is, of course, like newer movies, and that sort of did affect like my gauge on what day of the week it is, because beforehand with movie theaters, I would kind of gauge it by like, oh, the new movies are out on Thursday. And now, like, without that, it took some, I was asking, like, what day is this again? I was asking that a lot more. My wife, she was on paid leave for a couple of months. So she's back at work now, but it was harder on her because she's not used to being home all the time like me. So, she, towards the end, before she could go back to work, she was running out of things to watch on TV. She was getting, very anxious, things like that, very restless, and really wanting to get back to work. I think like how most normal people are, really. So it took her a lot more getting used to, and she's certainly happy to be back. She's certainly happy to be back at work finally.
How do you guys kind of self-care or kind of keep yourself sane?
I mean, we have friends who live in our building, so those few months we weren't just by ourselves in the apartment the whole time. There was a couple of months there where everything was closed, aside from having like things delivered and stuff like that. So we would just find different games to play. We would play a lot of video games, find new TV shows to watch. We had good ways of keeping ourselves occupied. With her, it was more like, eventually you're going to get cabin fever, like being kind of like quarantined for so long, no matter how much stuff you have to play or watch or things like that.
A lot of what has helped you to, do well and survive is being able to do your job, to, work on your own. There's been a lot of talk about how the pandemic has affected creativity. Like like some of your former friends and colleagues were like, I think Lindsay Ellis tweeted something to the effect of, the hardest thing for her is that she hasn't been as productive as she's been before. The one thing keeping her head above water was work. And because that is your only value as a conscious human being in this culture, we're kind of meant to believe that without work, we are nothing. So I'm kind of interested to know, like, how do accounts like that relate to what you have gone through as far as trying to cope with all of this, trying to stay creative, and trying to take good care of yourself through all of this?
Everyone deals with it differently. They certainly do. Over on our end, we adapted to, like, not just myself, but everyone else here in Chicago who does this and I work with, really found a way to adapt to it fairly quickly, which is to, we can't all be in the same place right now and like kind of be on camera with each other a lot. But, you know, we found a way to work in, well, we just have people record things on their own, send it to us, or we record things on Skype or Zoom or things like that. So we found a way to adapt all of that to our own shows. And by doing that, just get a good flow and pace going to where it'll start feeling normal much quicker. And, you know, in doing that, like the more you get used to it, it's like, yeah, it's still fun for us to do. It's different than it was before, but it's still fun. What we miss the most certainly is all hanging out with each other, like all being at the studio at the same time, going out to eat with each other, going to conventions with each other, and just hanging out. We all miss doing that as like a group, but you know, maybe that'll hopefully that'll change soon. Someone found something to do. They must be building something upstairs. I don't know if you heard that.
A guy's gotta be productive somehow, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever it takes to get stuff done.
I know. It's like, that's what I was going to do today. Get rid of that dead body.
Yes, exactly. I've heard stories about good and bad from you about your relationship with fans or people who watch you on YouTube. Like, I want to get a sense of kind of where you are on the spectrum of enjoying interaction versus, you know, after years of being a YouTube, you know, public person, you know, kind of needing a bit of cutoff for privacy.
Well, you know, things haven't been that bad really here in a couple of years, or a year or two, whatever, like, because it's all in how you treat communication and social media and the kind of presence that you have on there. Now, things used to be a bit more stressful, like a few years ago when I was much more, I don't know, like political on Twitter and even in some videos. And in retrospect, I'm kind of like, I don't know why, I'm just like a movie guy who likes just kind of talking about, like, you know, cult things and stuff like that. But, you know, this was at a time period where everyone was certainly very, very political. Everyone was very, very opinionated. So I kind of was too. And then after that, I was like, this isn't good for my, like, mental health. It's not good for my stress. Because you know, look, off camera, offline, and things like that, I got my opinions. I certainly have my political beliefs and things like that. Everybody does. And, you know, me, my friends, my wife, we talk about them quite a bit. But I kind of like having that distance now between the difference now between that and online. But yeah, I've not done so. But like I said, though, there's certainly like reviews and videos where something like that might come up. But it comes up in an area where you would expect it to. It's impossible not to. Like if I were to review the next Dinesh D'Souza movie, of course politics are going to get brought out.
Yeah, and if we ever get a sequel to the Trump prophecy, the sequel is just going to be off the hook.
That's getting re-released to theaters, by the way, like in like a week or so. The 2-year anniversary or something. It's like, yeah, you review something like the Trump prophecy. Yeah, of course, you're probably going to have a Trump joke in it or something. You review anything political, anything about any kind of topical subject or political subject, it's going to have a reference to that thing. But if you go into a review of the Trump prophecy and you're mad that there's like a topical joke in it, like, all right, then that's like your fault.
Yeah.
Like, what did you think was going to happen?
But I mean, in 2020 of all years, it's got to be having any kind of political conversation with a person or making kind of political jokes have got to feel, I have to believe, at least like a lot harder and a little bit heavier this year because there's so much more at stake. And the disagreements that become partisan political disagreements go far beyond anything that we've dealt with in the past that you might have conversed with a politically opposing person over. So I imagine it's got to be hard sometimes not to have, whatever your feelings are come into it, because this is way more fraught and, much more severe than it's been in the past.
It is. Yeah, it certainly is. It's a more hot button year than even 2016, which already was a pretty hot year. But there's a lot of content videos that I do where politics don't even like factor into it. Like, a review for the what was a superhero thing I watched on Disney Plus like a week, Secret Society of Second Born Royals, like terrible movie, but like it's like, yeah, politics certainly don't come up anywhere in it. If I'm going to have a political discussion with somebody, I much rather, and this is just me personally, like I'd much rather it be like actual in person, because there's just in my experience, it's just a better way to have a conversation versus if you're talking on Twitter or you're talking on Facebook, where there's really no filter. There's much less that's stopping you from going full on abrasive and kind of psychotic. and that's not good for anyone's mental health.
And just compounding that, the tendency for unfiltered people to get so much more bitter and vindictive is, it's actually fairly common, I've noticed, among YouTubers, Twitch streamers, people with a big social media presence, is for their personal lives and their relationships to kind of spill out into social media or their work and have fans, just boom, jumping in about them. And there are definitely times I've noticed that what happens in your personal life has that alone triggers a very passionate fan reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten, I've tried working on myself enough over the years to not let too much spill out, or, to use like social media as like a hug box or anything like that, or as like your replacement for therapy. But I've worked on over the years finding a balance between between putting too much out there that I'm comfortable with, to the point where it's like, you're this close to being the Truman Show. Between putting too much out there and just being like a mannequin, or just a ghost or something.
Where like your only presence is like your PR machine.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, exactly that. To try to find like a kind of balance between those two. That way, it's like, well, people know who you are and they get a grasp of who you are, but not too much. And I think over the years that I've found like a good balance between those two. And I've been working online long enough anyway, for 13, 14 years now, something like that, to where, I know that like anyone who works online, especially for that long, has bad things that are said about them. Totally. Everyone does. I certainly have. It's just all about like making sure you got thick enough skin for this particular line of work and to be on social media that much, and just ignoring it and not letting that kind of negativity turn you into the kind of negative person that person is. It's all about, if you're the better person, then mentally you're also the better person. And if you're the better person, your life is also better. It's like, I've got a good job and I've got a great wife and great friends and a wonderful family and everything. So I'm not going to let some stranger or some negative force like bring me down from all that. There's no reason. But I've been doing it long enough to where I got just kind of getting used to it over the years. So
I mean, doing what you do, being a worker, and also having like, you know, depression and ADHD,
Yeah.
that's gotta add an extra element of work to the kind of boundaries and, you know, self-care and the building of thick skin that you're talking about.
My depression was never really brought on by by mean things people say online or anything like that. Anytime I've ever had gone through like heavy bouts of depression, you know, it was usually because of like whatever vices I had going on, and like, you know, if it comes back, it's just sort of remnants of all of that. But you know, I'm 38, so I've learned to deal with it over the years, and you know, have things that'll make me feel better or keep my mind occupied on something. As far as my ADHD goes, yeah, I've applied it. That's really easy to apply to the line of work that I have. Like honestly, the reason why my workflow is quite a bit, but that my output is quite a bit, is, you know, I can probably attribute to that because I'm always thinking about something. I'm always thinking about some kind of script, some kind of video, whether it's a movie or, you know, an episode of The Snob or something like that. I've always got some kind of project in mind. And as far as like my movie scripts have gone, my favorite thing to write was always dialogue, and which is why my movies are typically very dialogue heavy. And my ADHD riddled brain can like write out a conversation pretty easily. It can also make the downside of that. It could also make my answers in interviews kind of long.
Oh,
because it makes my brain go everywhere.
The struggle is real. When I'm on the other side of an interview, I always give an answer and say, that's the long answer. The short answer is,
yeah.
I guess the only other question I had to ask is, have you had any aha moments of inspiration, that the kind of stuff that triggered, you know, being drunk in a car and thinking up Hooker with a Heart of Gold, or watching so many Pure Flix movies that you go, aha, Jesus, bro, or ditto with the Hallmark movies and the script for Baby It's Cold Outside. Like, do you find that kind of like spark of inspiration over anything new these days, or are you just kind of like sticking with the bottom line for now?
For right now, I'm mainly sticking to the site as opposed to a movie. So I have a movie that's written that we were going to make this year, but that got pushed to next year, of course. Like, so I haven't really thought too much in terms of other like movie scripts, because that was certainly the one I wanted to make next. I did have like a spark to like make something about people like in quarantine in the building, but then I quickly saw that there's like 5,000 other projects with that same thing, where people understandably have had the same thought in their head. So I'm like, nope, okay, not going to do that. I can't really bring anything extra to that.
All right. Well, Brad, is there anything else in particular on your mind that you'd like to add? Seen any good movies lately?
No, I just watched Hubie Halloween.
My condolences.
Whoa, dude.
Is there anything in the moment you need to get off your chest?
I probably shouldn't, because I got to write the review right after this. So I should probably maybe save that stream of consciousness for that. It's bad, dude. Whoa.
Yeah. All right. Well, happy watching, Brad. And once again, we've been speaking with Brad Jones. Brad, again, thank you so much for taking the time out to let us check in with you. Let us know how things are going. And
thank you.
Obviously, I wish you and Laura good, and Lloyd, of course, good luck and good health in the midst of all this craziness.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you. Thank you so much.